Okay, POW number 19 is, the answer to this one is A. The key to understanding this one is, and this problem is that X represents the number of minutes over 200. If you talked 220 minutes in a month, then you would calculate the bill like the example that I put right there. If you picked D as an answer, you thought you had to take like 220 minus 200, which would give you 20 that you're multiplying by. But the key to this problem was it was just the minutes that were over 200. So when in doubt, or when you're thinking about two separate answers, plug a number in and see if it makes sense. So this one you need to have A for the answer. Okay, number 20, this answer was A. And this one, the initial amount was 65, which is represented by B in a linear equation. And the rate of change is 5, and that's represented by M in a linear equation. And so I wrote that this is a linear function, which is modeled by the slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b. And then I plugged in the numbers. Okay, number 21. This one we ended up doing in class one day. But X represented the student tickets, and I had Y represent the non-student tickets. So I set up an equation, or actually I set up an inequality. 3x plus 5y is greater than or equal to 1,500 because they needed to make at least $1,500. And then x plus y is less than or equal to 400 because the most students that they could have in the gymnasium was 400. So then I turned the above into standard form, or I turned the standard form inequalities into slope-intercept form. And then I ended up graphing them. And along my x-axis, I counted by 25s. And along my y-axis, I counted by 25s also. But if you notice, it's kind of hard to see on this one. But right there on the graph, that means I'm not starting right there at 0. So then I found that the answer was D. And that was the only ordered pair that would be in the intersection of my two inequalities. Another way that you could have done it was you could have tried your answer choices and see which one would make you the most money and still fit the criteria for being less than 400 students. And that was also the way you would get that one. D would get you the most money and still fit the criteria of 400 students. Okay, number 22. Number 22 was wanting to know which of the statements below is true when you were purchasing Melissa's car and Steve's car. So I first found what Melissa's car would be worth after 7 years by using the exponential function that they provided. And I found what Steve's car would be worth after 7 years using the linear function that they provided. And then I needed to find the difference between the two. And when I did that, I got $152.75. So that answer was A. Number 23, that's hard to see, but the answer over here was C. And they wanted to know which equation would fit according to the population of Sunnydale. And it was increasing by 2.5%. And when something's increasing, you take the percent and you add it to 100. And then I turned it into a decimal, so that's how I got 1.025. And then that was the only one that even matched that. So that answer was just C. Number 24. Number 24 was talking about bacteria that was doubling itself every hour. And it wanted to know which function would this be. Well, if you are doubling yourself every hour, that means you're multiplying by 2 every hour. And multiplying by 2 over and over again, that's multiplying exponentially by 2. So I wrote, when bacteria doubles itself every hour, that means it's growing exponentially. If you chose C, the linear function, you're only multiplying each hour by 2, which is very different than doubling it. Again, when in doubt, make up a number for bacteria and do what it says every hour, and you will see that it turns out to be an exponential function instead of a linear function. Okay, number 25. The answer to this one was A, and I said because each y value is being multiplied by 3 each time, which is exactly what exponential functions do. Okay. Number 26, which was actually the last one. 26 was saying that Mr. Levy invested $6,500 at 4.5% annual interest. They gave you the exponential function to use, and it wanted to know what the value of investment would be after 18 months. So the key here was it's talking in years, but then it turns around and asks you about 18 months. So you have to convert 18 months into years, which is 1.5. And when you do that, you're going to get $6,943.65. So I wrote B is the answer. The essential part to the problem is making sure that the X value is 1.5, which represents 1.5 years. If you ended up choosing D, you put 18 in for X, and that's way different than 1.5. Plus, that doesn't make sense. Remember, math makes sense. If you have $6,500 and you're going to invest it, how much money will you have a year and a half later? For $6,500 to turn into $14,000 in a year and a half, that would be amazing.